The psychology of people who prefer listening over talking. Have you ever noticed them? They are the quiet ones, the still points in the turning, chattering world of human conversation, while others are engaged in a frantic and competitive dance of self-expression, of storytelling, of the desperate and ceaseless broadcasting of their own ego. They seem to inhabit a different reality altogether. They are the watchers, the observers, the silent, absorbent presences who seem to be drinking in the world rather than spewing themselves out into it. They are the people who prefer listening over talking. You have likely encountered these people, and in the noisy, extroverted bias of our culture, you have probably misunderstood them completely. You have seen their silence and you have diagnosed it with the easy, pre-packaged labels our world provides. They're shy. They're insecure. They have nothing to say. They're just passive. You, a citizen of a civilization that has come to equate the volume of one's voice with the value of one's soul, cannot comprehend their quietude. It feels like a weakness, a deficiency, a form of social failure. But what if you are wrong? What if their silence is not an absence but a presence? What if their preference for listening is not a sign of their passivity but of a profound and terrifying form of power? What if they are not the ones who have nothing to say but are, in fact, the only ones who are truly hearing anything at all? The brutal and uncomfortable truth is that the person who prefers listening over talking is not always the weakest person in the room. Often they are the wisest, the most perceptive, and the most powerful. Their silence is not a void, it is a carefully guarded sanctuary. It is a strategic vantage point, and it is a weapon. To understand the psychology of the listener is to uncover a secret and almost forgotten path to a form of intelligence, of influence, and of profound human connection that the noisy, talkative world has all but lost. The primal wound, the listener, as the unseen child. To understand the psychology of the person who prefers to listen, we must first understand that this is not a monolithic category. This is a vast and complex landscape of the human soul, and it is populated by many different kinds of inhabitants. And for many, the roots of their quiet, receptive stance lie in a deep and primal wound. This is the person who grew up in an environment where their own voice was not welcome, where it was dangerous, or where it was simply and devastatingly ignored. They are the child of the narcissistic parent who required an audience, not a conversation partner. They are the child of the volatile and angry parent who learned that to speak was to risk a terrifying and unpredictable wrath. They are the child of the emotionally barren and neglectful parent who learned from 1,000 silent interactions that their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own inner world were a matter of profound indifference to the people who were supposed to be their primary source of validation. For this child, the act of listening is not a choice, it is a survival strategy. They learn with the uncanny perception of a creature whose emotional survival is on the line to become a perfect and flawless mirror. They learn to suppress their own emerging self, their own voice, and to become a hyper-vigilant and exquisitely attuned receiver of the needs, the moods, and the emotional broadcasts of the powerful adults around them. Their silence is the silence of the spy, the silence of the hostage, the silence of the ghost. It is a form of camouflage, a desperate and brilliant attempt to become so unobtrusive, so perfectly reflective that they will not be seen as a threat and therefore will not be harmed. As an adult, this person's preference for listening is a continuation of this trauma response. Their silence is a fortress. They are not listening to you out of a generous and open-hearted curiosity. They are listening to you out of a deep and terrified need to gather information, to assess the threat, to figure out what you want from them so that they can perform the correct role and remain safe. They are not with you in the conversation. They are managing you. Their quietude is not a sign of their peace, it is a sign of their profound and unceasing anxiety. They are the person who is a brilliant and empathetic listener, the one who all their friends come to for advice, but who has no one to whom they can ever reveal the profound and terrible loneliness of their own unheard soul. The Jungian introvert, the listener as the guardian of the inner world. But there is another kind of listener, a person whose quietude comes not from a wound, but from a profound and innate psychological structure. This is the person whose primary reality is their own inner world. This is the archetypal introvert, as understood by the great psychologist Carl Jung. For the introvert, the external world, and especially the world of social interaction, is not their native element. It is a foreign and often exhausting environment. Their energy is not generated by social contact. It is consumed by it. Their truest and most vital life is lived in the vast, rich, and teeming landscape of their own psyche. Their relationship with their own thoughts, their own ideas, their own inner archetypal figures is often more real, more intimate, and more nourishing than any relationship they could ever have with an external person. For this person, talking is an act of expenditure. It is the act of taking the precious and carefully cultivated treasures of their inner world and attempting to translate them into the crude and clumsy language of the external world. It is a process that is often frustrating and always depleting. Listening, on the other hand, is an act of gathering, of acquisition. It is the act of collecting the raw and often unthought-out material of the external world and bringing it back into the sacred, alchemical laboratory of their own mind, where it can be slowly, quietly, and painstakingly transmuted into understanding, into insight, into a new and more complex part of their own inner tapestry. The introvert's preference for listening is not a sign of their passivity, it is a sign of their deep and abiding respect for the process of thought itself. They are not interested in the shallow, reactive, and performative thinking that so often passes for conversation in the external world. They are interested in the real thing, and they know that the real thing is a slow, difficult, and solitary process. Their silence is not a sign of their emptiness, it is a sign of their profound and radical fullness. It is the silence of a library, a cathedral, a workshop. It is the silence of a space in which a deep and sacred work is being done. This person is not avoiding connection, they are simply seeking a different and far deeper form of it. The noisy, superficial, and ego-driven connection of the typical social gathering is, for them, a form of profound disconnection. They are seeking a connection that is soul to soul, a connection that can often be found more in a shared silence than in 1,000 empty words. Their preference for listening is not a rejection of you. It is an invitation to meet them in the deep, quiet, and infinitely more real space of their own and your own inner world. The Machiavellian strategist, the listener as the master of the game. We have now reached the most powerful and the most morally ambiguous of all the archetypes of the listener. This is the person whose silence is not a wound, and it is not a temperament, it is a weapon. This is the listener as the master strategist, the quiet and unassuming figure in the corner of the room who is, in fact, the only one who truly understands and controls the game. This is the listener as understood by the great and terrible philosopher of power, Niccolo Machiavelli. The Machiavellian listener understands a profound and uncomfortable truth about human nature. People do not want to listen. They want to be heard. They are not looking for a conversation. They are looking for an audience. The world is a stage, and every person on it is a desperate and hungry actor, starving for the validation of an attentive gaze. The amateur in the game of power tries to win by being the best actor, by having the loudest voice, by making the most impressive speech. The master wins by becoming the audience. They understand that the person who is talking is the person who is giving away all of their power. The talker is revealing their desires, their fears, their insecurities, their strategies. They are, in a very real sense, handing their opponent the keys to their own psychological kingdom. The listener, in contrast, reveals nothing. They are a black hole, a perfect and flawless void into which the other person pours all of their secrets, all of their vulnerabilities. This is a form of power that is almost impossible to resist. The person who feels truly and deeply listened to will feel a profound and instinctual bond of trust and affection with the listener. They will feel that they have been seen, that they have been understood, that they have finally found an ally in a cold and indifferent world. And they will have absolutely no idea that this entire experience has been a carefully managed and utterly strategic illusion. The Machiavellian listener is not listening out of empathy. They are listening out of a cold, dispassionate and ruthless desire to gather information, to understand the machinery of their opponent's soul so that they can, at the opportune moment, pull the perfect lever to achieve their desired outcome. Their silence is not a sign of their weakness, it is the ultimate sign of their strength. It is a display of profound emotional control. While the talker is a slave to their own ego, to their own desperate need to be seen and heard, the listener is a master of themselves. They have conquered the most difficult of all human impulses, the impulse to talk about oneself. And in this conquest they have achieved a form of pure and terrifying power. They are the quiet and unassuming spider at the center of a vast and intricate web, and the talkers are the frantic, buzzing flies who have no idea that they are already trapped. The path of the conscious listener, the choice before the modern soul. What then can we learn from these silent and complex figures, these people who prefer listening over talking? They are not just social outliers, they are a mirror. They are a profound and uncomfortable reflection of the deep and often desperate spiritual poverty of our own noise-addicted culture. They show us how much we have come to fear the silence, how much we have come to devalue the deep and transformative power of receptive attention, how much we have forgotten the simple and sacred art of truly hearing another human being. The path of the listener, whether it is the path of the wounded survivor, the introverted sage, or the Machiavellian strategist, is the path of the person who has, for whatever reason, understood the immense and almost forgotten power of silence. The journey for the person who is trapped in the fearful, wounded silence of their past is the journey of transforming that silence from a fortress into a garden. It is the work of healing the inner child who was never heard, of learning that it is safe to have a voice, and of finally arriving at a place where listening is no longer a defense but is one of a vast and beautiful array of authentic ways of being in the world. And the journey for the rest of us, for the talkers, for the performers, for the ones who are so terrified of the silence that we fill every moment with the sound of our own voice, is to have the immense courage to ask ourselves what we are so afraid of. What terrifying emptiness are we trying to drown out with our endless chatter? What profound and life-altering truths are we refusing to hear, both from the world and from our own souls, because we are too busy listening to the sound of our own ego? The person who prefers listening over talking has given us a great and terrible gift. They have shown us the possibility of a different kind of power, a power that is not found in the force of our own expression, but in the depth of our own receptivity. They have shown us that the ultimate form of wisdom is not to have all the answers, but to have all the questions. And they have shown us that the ultimate form of connection is not to be the most interesting person in the room, but to be the person who is the most interested. For in the end, the measure of a human life is not in the words we have spoken, but in the moments when we had the courage to be silent, to be still, and to truly and profoundly listen.